Welcome to another episode of the New Labor Movement Show. I am one of your hosts, Troy.
I'm your other host, Ray.
And I'm your sometime host, Ian.
Going over
Ian. Good to have you. Good to have you.
Another week of local law, labor, and politics. All right. So when we're coming down to the wire, we only have a few days left before election. So we've been going over each presidential candidate for the past couple of shows. So figure we just do it again. So for this episode, I figured we go over some different topics and talk about each candidate's plan for what they have under that topic going forward.
Well, they did give us the tax cut, which did lead to a lower tax bill for 65% of Americans. That's just a fact. We all paid. You paid lower taxes. He paid lower taxes. I paid lower taxes. I'm just saying. Yeah, we did. We did.
The distribution of how those taxes were lowered is a bit skewed.
I will say this. I believe that more should go towards the middle class, obviously, but when people make more and they pay more of a percentage, then you get more of it, you get a bigger percentage of the tax break. That's just kind of, right now, 43% of people in this country don't pay federal taxes at all, not $1, right?
Well,
if you're in the top 10, the top 10% of this country, they pay like 70% of the taxes.
That's great. You need to pay a little bit more. The part where you said,
okay, listen. I mean, you do have, listen, and listen, you can make the argument about the percentages, and I agree 100%. But you do realize that there becomes a certain level where you tax people so much on their endeavors that they just don't think it's worth it. I don't want to go there. Now, if you're telling me you want to tax I don't even want to tax the 1%, because 1% in this country is like 450,000. That's like a lawyer and a doctor in New York City. They're not part of the problem. Now, if you're telling me it's the top 1/10 of the right, if you're telling me the 1/10 of 1%, 100%. If you're telling me people who are making millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars a year, then yeah, 100%. Those guys we should definitely find a way to make them pay more. I agree.
Question is a little different. My question is more plans going forward. So right now, the tax cuts that were put in place, let's start there. Is the current administration's plan just to continue what the current tax plan is and leave it as it is? We already know the Biden administration would look to repeal that tax break. Is the other
right, which means all
going forward,
means all of our taxes are going to go up.
Correct. But the amount that it came down, the funny thing is everybody's taxes are going to go up. That's like kind of a catchphrase. But the fact is that the amount that it went down, you make an extra $20 in your paycheck. It's not really that we're losing that greater that greater break.
If you think about it, it's I also paid less at the end of the year. And listen, and my situation may be different from you. Again, my situation is different from other guys. Maybe some guys, depending upon your situation. I made a little more and I paid a little less. Like, what I'm saying? Like it was my tax bill at the end of the year was pretty comparable, and I made what I got back and what I paid more the year. So it kind of like, was it a huge bump? No, but yes, it was less. And would I like more in my paycheck? Sure. But unfortunately, to give us the type of break, we make, our guys who make what we make up the biggest section of numbers wise of people who pay taxes. We're the largest segment. So to give us all a break, you're going to have to then really heavily tax someone else, or you're going to have to ask more people who make less than us to chip in.
Well, this is my problem with the tax thing is you're giving such a small break to the masses, and then you're giving a large portion of that to say the higher percentage in that tax bracket. The money adds out. Say it was $1.7 trillion. They're getting 85% of that. It makes no sense. If anything, you could take that entire tax break, you don't even have to give them higher taxes. Just don't give them any of the tax break. That additional 185% of 1.7 trillion, if you take that money and invest it into something that is giving the average worker high and paying jobs, or some type of investment in the future that can create and stimulate the economy more, you're doing much more of a job to help the average worker than you are by giving those corporations 85% of that 1.7 trillion dollar tax break. And our part of it will run out in 10 years. There is going to go in perpetuity.
I mean, me personally, I would think that there has to be a way that you could gear things towards America, like an America first kind of agenda. Like, yes, like you said, the tax rate we have to make it as low as it is now because we have to compete internationally. Places like China, Ireland, most places in Europe, Sweden, Germany, all these places have 21, 20, 19, 18% tax rate, and their individual rates are up to 60% to pay for what they get.
I don't understand.
So,
I don't understand this form of logic, because the question is, who are we trying to compete with? Are we trying to give this? Yeah, are we trying to give this tax break because we feel that we have to baby and give the corporations all this money? Otherwise, what? Otherwise, they won't give us jobs. If you're trying to use that to bribe them, say, I'm going to give you a tax break to give you all this money, giving people with a lot of money or people with businesses is never a way to create jobs. No smart businessman is going to create jobs out of thin air just because you gave them more money. They're going to keep that money. The only thing that creates an incentive for them to want to have more jobs is a higher need and demand of services. And that comes when consumers have more money to spend and there's a need to expand their business when they can see additional profit. They're not going to just make more jobs because you're giving them money.
See, I really think that if you all of a sudden, right now the corporate tax rate is what, 25%? It went from 28 to 25, or maybe it's down to 21. If you all of a sudden magically put it back up to say 35%, where do you think that money will come from to make up those taxes?
The working people.
It won't come from their profits. That is 100% not what's going to happen. Two things will happen, in my humble opinion. They'll pay people less to make up the difference, and they'll charge people more on their products. Yes, they may take a hit on their profit because obviously there's only so much they can raise the price of a product and only so much lower they can push down before people won't work for them. But they'll do those two levers first before they come after their profit.
And that's going to be
if they can, then they'll make their corporate headquarters in other places.
That's I don't believe that's a difficult task to get done, to target the people at a certain percentage that are doing it and make sure small businesses are not. It's just people have to have the wherewithal to want to do it. There is no
listen, that's completely a big part of it.
Yeah, right now the tax plan that currently is in place incentivizes those big companies to ship those jobs overseas, actually, instead of having it here. So when you speak of things like if you raise the tax rate to a certain point and they're not going to take it out their profit, they're just going to look for other ways, like say the workers. Only two simple things you have to do is, one, put laws in place that make it where they can't do the workers, it would have to come from their profits. And then secondly, make it in the same thing that they're doing with China right now. If you take your product overseas, we're going to tariff it so heavily that it's going to be counterproductive for you to do that. I mean, we have the upper hand and the leverage in this case, where the American consumer is one of the biggest driving forces of their market. What they're going to do, take their product over to India and make it and then have them buy it, paying them cheap labor? It doesn't work that way. Either way, they still need us to buy it. So why are we placating to someone who we are more or less the ones that fund their wealth?
I think there's some truth in that. I just don't know what law could you constitutionally write that would say that you can only make a certain percentage of profit?
No, you don't have to do that. I don't have to. You can make whatever profit you want. I could just make it where you have minimum standards of wages, and then I'm a tax at a certain depending on your income and your wages, I'm gonna tax you at a certain rate. That way you can make sure that the super wealthy are the ones that's getting taxed and pulling back. The small businesses aren't hurt, and you're not able to pass on that profit loss to hurting the workers' wages. That's it. Simply set that law, and there's nothing else that needs to be spoken of.
So now you're proposing, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. So you're proposing that you would write into law a certain minimum wage for every worker? Is it based on skill? Is it based on industry? What is it based on?
It should be on a living wage. If we had just did according to what inflation would have been, then and raised the wages according to the production, the profits that the companies made production, the minimum wage at right now, I think it would be like $20-something an hour. What happened is there's a social contract with capitalism. The production is supposed to equal a higher increase in the wages for the people, but what corporations found out that they were able to not pay the workers and then continuously raise their profit, and then the workers just went along with it. So when that was broken, that's when their money went so high and ours stayed stagnant. Now all you gotta do is fix what they stole from us and then make them give it back. I can guarantee you can take half of what any of those major corporations, those billionaires make, and their lifestyle would not change in one bit, but it would fix the entire rest of the United States.
Again, playing devil's advocate, because I do want people to pay a fair amount of taxes. Fair is a subjective term. See, from what you're telling me, it seems like you want to have a minimum wage. So what electricians do the same as what people who work at McDonald's do?
No, we would. I think if the minimum wage is $20 and whatever our wage is now, our wages would have to go above. Everything would have to scale. So always go up. And this is not to say it can't all happen all at once, because number one is everybody will more or less need to raise their prices, because like small business owners, they can only charge but so much because people only make so much. But when people have a higher scale of living across the board, then everyone can raise their wages to the standard of what it should have been at now. If employees were getting paid the increments of wages they should have been getting over these years. So it would have to
All
be
right. So then
in pieces, but
okay. So then what law are you passing? What type of law are you passing to now cut into 50% of their taxes? So in other words, last year, McDonald's made $1 billion, we'll say. How are you going to make sure that they make 500 billion?
You just
500 million.
You set the tax rate at where, and then you could, this way you could scale and have the businesses that are the mega corporations that are happening at, and you set a ceiling. If it's $500 billion, say for instance, the small business owner is not making if you're making $500 billion, you're no longer a small business. So you just set.
Okay, I see. Okay, so what you're saying is you're going to set a ceiling, and above that ceiling, you're going to charge maybe 70, 80, 90% tax rate. Correct. Above that.
Right, until we can bring this back.
And listen, again, I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Now, if you are, now it's only a couple of people, it's probably only a couple of corporations that make above this, whatever ceiling you want to make. After that, you charge 80, 90,000. Now, 80, 90%. Now, wouldn't you think that the corporation would then adapt and say, well, we're only going to make up to that money? Because don't you think there is a principle where of diminishing returns, where if I made 500,000, I could keep the maximum on that, on the 500 million, but anything I make of it, I lose 80%. When do you think that the tax rate would say, you know what, it no longer behooves me to make any more of that money since I lose so much of it?
No business is going to say, okay, because we're going to make less profit than we were before, at this, when we hit this number, stop making money and don't make any more money. That's not going to happen. And two, if there is,
no, but I'm telling you honestly, I think you're, no offense, I think you're naive, because if you were going to say, as we're electricians, and we're going to make, if we work 50 hours, we get to keep 80% of the money we make at 50 hours. But every hour you work after 50, you only get to keep 20% of that money. After, would you work 65 hours a week to make that extra little money?
People do it all the time at the job. No, people do it all the time at the job. Guys work overtime. By the
way, Ian's shaking it. Look at Ian. He's like, I would you? There'd be no incentive.
Listen, at the job, I will watch people work all the time and watch, because when they went overtime at a certain point in time, how much less they would get paid on their taxes. And yet and still, they would still work that overtime, because no matter what, it was more money than they would get in if they didn't work the overtime. So no matter how much it was taxed, you still want that more money.
Oh, again, and yes, I'm sure you would have some companies that would say 20% of something is better than 100% of nothing. I just think that what would happen is there would be an adaptation where they would say, it's no longer worth it to have the people work, for me to buy the products, for me to do everything to make so much less than I did.
And this
And
is
yes,
the next,
for
and this
every
is the next-
one, for every one guy you're going to do it, you'd have 10 guys who would say, I'm not going to do it. Listen, Ian works on job sites. I work on job sites. If you have 30 guys on a job site and you have that same deal, you'll get 2 guys or 3 guys will come in. The other 27 guys are going to make this. See you Monday.
Yeah, exactly. And
So if they stop production because they hit a certain number and it makes no more sense for them, quote unquote, to continue making money, all that's going to happen is that need is going to get filled by someone else. And that would be the best
Right.
option to me, because that will help other businesses, now there's a smaller business, grow and start to overtake the businesses that are more what I call cheating.
Okay. I mean, listen, I think a lot of what you say makes sense. I just think that there's a lot of things that in the real world would really prohibit that. And again, I want everyone to pay their fair share. I just don't know what fair is. The current administration has the vaccine.
What?
It has a
That's
ton of
the
things. The vaccine should be out by the 1st of the year. They've also got therapeutics, plenty of therapeutics coming down the line. We have enough ventilators if there's another wave. We have enough ventilators that we have enough for this country, and we're actually shipping to other countries. What else have we done so far? We've made proposals. Well, not we, because, you know, I'm not Donald Trump, last I checked. I think that there have been moves made for the future that will help if there is a second wave.
you say we so often, you're definitely part of the administration. I think they're
I mean, we as Americans.
actually watching this. I gotta watch what I said. So,
We Americans, you know, I want, listen, I'm of the belief that I want the president to do well, because when the president does well, America does well. When Barack Obama was elected, though I did not vote for him, I wanted him to do well, because when a president does well, a country does well. I think you should always root for the president, because
well,
when he does well, we do well.
if your president is not listening to science, how
Our
is
president.
that thing done well? You should, yeah, you're right. Our president isn't doing a good job of listening to scientists. So how is he getting things done in a manner that makes
All right.
sense?
What has the scientific community told him that he's not doing?
Advising people
Gathering-
to wear masks and doing
gathering-
contact tracing.
In mask?
Contact tracing is being done, but that's based. First of all, that's a state matter, and he advising people to wear masks. He doesn't tell people not to wear masks. He says if you want to wear a mask, you should wear a mask.
And he mocks people who wear masks.
I wear a mask. I don't feel mocked.
You can't do both. You can't say both and get a general response. People are gonna do it.
Listen, I think that if he wore masks, more people will wear masks. Okay, and I think that would help somewhat of the spread of the disease. I can't say that if people wore a mask indoors when they couldn't separate, that if more people wore masks in those situations, that would probably it would slow the spread of the disease down. I 100% agree. And he should say that. And I believe he does say that. What he doesn't do is a mask mandate, which he's not really constitutionally able to do.
Exactly. A mandate though would help, because look at hospitals that's close by Kentucky. When there wasn't a mask mandate, when they implemented somewhat of a mandate, the science, the math of the hospital rate went down. When they didn't, it was up. So why can't we listen to that science and form some sort of mask mandate?
Well, the WHO does state that masking the general public does not slow the spread. Masking in situations where you're inside and cannot socially distance, 100%. I think that is no doubt that is the smart way to go. And I believe he has said it, but I don't believe he says it enough where people believe him. And I would think that that would be something that he could say. He
You
could be
know,
more emphatic about.
that's actually the first thing I agree with you on. Outside in the element, you really don't need masks.
Normal Americans, when you see the stuff like this that pop up in the news as kind of a highlight headline, it usually you hear about it for a while and then it kind of goes away. But it doesn't go away by itself. It's usually someone in the administration that's working hard behind the scenes, unheard of, that's putting a plan in place to make these things go away. The only problem we have now, I think that the person that's saying it'll just go away is the person that's supposed to put that plan in place, and that's why it's not going away. It's like when the kids come in and the dishes is always done or the house is clean, they think it just kind of like it just happens, but no, somebody was behind that work in order doing things to make it happen. The biggest part of that fears me, that makes me think it's just kind of like a wait and not a earnest to make sure it's stopped. And this is going to definitely hurt the economy and keep it from going back. Is like like right now at the rallies that they hold in the current administration, they have these rallies with masses of people in there, no mask, no social distancing, and you're looking at the crowd and you're not telling the crowd, hey, everyone right now, put on your mask. If you're going to be in here, you need to put on your mask. That's not being said. And if that's to me, like, it doesn't seem a great concern, then why are you not going into the crowd and shaking hands with everybody after your speech is done to speak to them one-on-one? It's because you wouldn't do that because it's a risk. So if that's a risk too much for you to take, why do you have thousands of people in there and you don't care about the risk they're taking amongst each other?
Right.
I think you really are doing a lot of mind reading there, because I don't think that I remember any president or candidate walking through a crowd shaking hands at rallies like this.
No, even he does it. Even before the COVID, they will walk through after speech. They will always walk through the crowd and shake the hands of the people and take pictures with them.
Well, again, I think he doesn't shake the hands because, listen, here's how I would deflect that. Anyone forcing you to go to a rally. No. If you don't want to go to a rally, if you're a person at risk, then don't go. I mean, I think the fact that you guys weigh so heavy, and you guys, I mean,
do you think that's a legit answer?
What I think is, I think at the end of the day, you have to let people make their own decisions, because you can tell people, right? You can tell. So in other words, when you go there,
you don't think he has some type of
they hand out masks.
All those people are coming.
Of course he does.
Him. And you know that what the disease does, and it's deadly. You know it so much that you're not going out there to intermingle with them. You're not going to dare go down there because it's too dangerous. So you know all those people there are coming there because they support you, and the best thing for them to do, at least when all of them put on the mask, would not to tell them like, listen, you guys I'm glad you're out to support me, but you all should have on a mask, because I'm not going to come down with you. So if I'm scared to come down with you, I shouldn't have all of you who support me amongst each other, breathing on each other. I mean, just tell me if that's wrong. I don't think that's wrong.
I think as usual, instead of being objective, you just don't like the man, which is your prerogative, and you're reading his intentions. Since I won't come down and shake your hand, so I want you to die. No.
I think that's the most objective I can see being. That's just like
no. I think you know what it is. I believe in the American people. If I have someone at home who is vulnerable, or I myself are vulnerable, I won't go to the rally. Right?
You know that he will not go down to that crowd to speak to them because it's a high.
I have no idea. You would have to ask it to assume he won't go down because he's scared, even though he got the disease, because he went out and did his job. I mean, I would think I would think working class guys like us would be more impressed. Say, you know what? This guy is president. He knows you can't run the presidency from a bunker. So I'm going to go out and do the people's work, meaning I got to campaign, I got to meet people, I got to do this, I got to be around people. I got to be around people.
That's his work. That's him.
I got to be around people. Listen, But
his
listen,
word together.
I expect you. I love it. I expect
now this-
you to
this-
go out and
these are the
risk
parts- these
yourself.
are the
I
parts I
go
don't
out and I
get.
risk myself.
I don't see how this is even a debatable topic, saying that I'm going to bring all these people out. And I know the only reason all these people are gathered together in this arena is because of me. I know that I'm putting them at a high risk by coming together. And instead of just telling everyone at the very minimum to wear a mask, because I wouldn't go down there, I'm just going to let it flow. And you seen him after the rallies where a reporter come to talk to him and he put his hands out to tell him, stay back. Like, I don't want you close to me. You can stay next to all those people who came to see me, but I don't want you next to me. And you tell me that's you don't see anything wrong with that?
I do know why I don't see anything wrong with it, because
'Cause
those
they
are
chose to come
people
there.
making a free decision. You don't want to be there, don't go.
Right.
Don't
And-
go.
and
But
that's
yet
like
you
saying,
have, but
like,
yet we have
listen,
no. We have.
Honestly, I see that as like, if you want to be, I see that you saying, if you want to be stupid enough to come out to see me, hey, that's on you. And I don't think that the people that came out to see him, he should do that too. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, and that is one prerogative. But you know what? You're insulting people's intelligence, but people can
I'm
make
not
their own
insulting
decisions.
people's-
I want to go to the rally. I don't think that I'm at risk. In other words, and you know, when you go there, they give out hand sanitizer, they check your temperature, they give you a mask, but they're not going to put a gun to your head and say, wear it. Now, listen, if I was at the rally, I would 100% put a mask on. I
Believe
think
that.
that people, I think people are allowed to make their own decisions. Unfortunately, even bad ones.
I
And
know.
I think
and
that
the thing about
the
it
reason
is,
why, and I
I'm not
think the
saying-
reason why,
I'm not
I
even
think the
saying
reason.
he should penalize them or anything for their decisions or look down upon them. But at the very minimum, if those people come to see you and you know what it can do to them, you don't. If he was at that podium, say everyone has to put their mask on, and start pointing people out like, no, you don't have your mask on. Come on, you have to put your mask on. Everyone would, at the very sake that those people there see him and he know that it could help them prevent getting sick. That should be the bare minimum that he does at those rallies when he know all those people are come together to see him. And so far, it's showing tracks of the testing that all the places that he's holding rallies, that the rate of infections have been going up. Is it coincidence or not? I don't know. But at the very minimum, he should do that. He can do it. Everyone in that crowd will listen to him if he stopped in the same way he points out the news and everything like that.
Now, were you all right? Were you this upset though when people went out and protested?
This is outside, Ray. This was outside, Ray. You can't bring that up, Ray. This is.
I know all his rallies now are outside. Every rally he's had in the last 2 months has been outside.
And let me just say one thing.
All been outside.
Even during the time of the protest, when I was watching it, the mass majority of all protesters had on masks and a few didn't. And I still didn't like the fact that all those people were out there protesting, even with masks on.
I commend your consistency. I commend your consistency.
I saw it as
Ian, I'm a little bit shaky on.
Still getting sick, but I understand that people were out there and emotion was taking over. And it is what it was. And even with the people at the rallies, I'm not saying the people shouldn't go to his rallies, because people are gonna make their own decisions of what they're gonna do. But as the person holding it and they're coming to see you and you know what can be done and you're making sure you stay away from them, I just think you have some type of responsibility to try to help those people.
In reality, though, he has said this, Troy, I take no responsibility.
Having no responsibility would be, I think that would be false, because I do believe that by holding the rally, you at least put in the person's mind to come. For you to be completely blameless, you would have to not have any rallies or do them virtually. Even if it's 2% that's on him, it's still 2% or 5%, whatever you would accustomed to him. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it, he could say social distance. You could have everyone socially distance, everyone can wear masks. People could still get sick. Think about it. Every time all of us go to work, we very rarely could be sitting next to someone who could be sick, and we could be masked up, they could be masked up, and we could still get sick. So there is a certain amount of risk you have to take. For him to say there he has no responsibility, I think is foolish, and I would say that's not a good look.
And
that's not a good look.
My fear is that the rate that we're going now, without any plan to try to curb this and just waiting to see if it goes away, waiting for a vaccine, it puts us longer away in any hope of the economy being able to come back quickly. Also, that's one of my fears.
the new standard, the new standard of having a test available for anyone anytime is it's unrealistic, because you couldn't test 320 million people every
I'm not
day.
even sure, not even just the testing sporadic. My thing is, as if the federal government was behind one comprehensive plan to start from A and move to Z, then I believe that would be better.
Unfortunately, this is definitely a weak spot for Republicans, because I believe they have 3 ideas that they want, and I think there are 3 good things about each plan, but I think each plan also falls short. So until you can get all the Republicans on the same page to vote for something, this is definitely a sore spot. I mean, he's done some things around the edges. He's tried to tap foreign markets so we can lower the drug price. That's why the drug companies are going after him. He has instituted Just Try It, which he's cut the red tape for people who are on terminal illnesses, and they can just try and have more access to experimental drugs, which is good. He's the one who streamlined the tele appointments. That was his administration. So he has helped around the edges, but to have it's like, Troy, you and I talk about this all the time. I think Obamacare is terrible, but they haven't even offered anything that's even a little less terrible, which I think is the shame.
Ray.
Yes, man.
Take away Obamacare. Okay. But before you take that away, shouldn't you have something in place?
Oh, no.
That's what he said.
Troy and I have said this at least 4 or 5 times on different podcasts. If you think something is awful, you should replace it with something that's at least a little less awful. And they have not. And that has been their main thing. Listen, huge hole. Now, it only affects about 10% of the people, but it is 10% of the people who need it.
Yeah.
I mean, 90% of people right now get their, have between the government plans that are out there and their providers, do their work. 90% of people are covered. So you're talking about 10% of people, and which is, listen, 1 is too many. So I get what, but you know what I'm saying? But yes, they should find something. If they think this is horrible, then offer me something just terrible.
Right.
And they have not done that. There is no defense on that.
Yeah. While me and Ray agree both that while we disagree on, say, Obamacare being horrible or not horrible, we both agree that you don't take away something, even if it's bad, and be able to replace it with nothing. My biggest fear about what's going forward with the healthcare plan, we spoke about there is no plan from the current administration. With the plan that Biden has, he has to offer a public option in addition to the Obamacare and increase the subsidies. My biggest fear is with not having a plan in place and trying to repeal the Healthcare Act, is that immediately, and I think it's as of November 3rd, it's already structured in a way through the courts that they're going to look to, right after the election, they'll be able to immediately take away the current healthcare plan in place without one being there to supplement it. Also now with 8 million people additionally now contracting the COVID virus, that's additional 8 million people who now have pre-existing conditions. And if anything happens to the economy, like it happened during the shutdown, with people who are currently working or out of their job for any reason, that's an additional, I don't know how many extra millions of people who will also be without their company healthcare and be in the same boat as those people now without healthcare. So to me, it seems like a very dangerous cliff to be coming over, to be removing that at a time when the most people are going to need it.
While we agree in big principle that I think they should have something before they tear something down, I think a couple things need to be cleared up. Right now, there is no guarantee whatsoever that Obamacare will be repealed. I think what they're looking at now is to see if, now that the mandate has been taken away, is the rest of the law, can the rest of the law stand up? So that's one thing. The conservative view on this is not to tear everything down. The conservative view in judicial theory is that you take out that part and you try and make sure that the rest of it can stand. So I would imagine the likely outcome is going to be that the mandate will not be there, and the rest of Obamacare will stay intact.
The attorney generals that filed the lawsuit in court that that were attacking the plan, it would definitely remove pre-existing conditions, even though they tried to say it would during their campaigns during the 2018 midterms. It would definitely remove pre-existing conditions. Also,
Only if the whole law was struck down. Only if the whole law is struck down.
And the entire reason was to removing the mandate was to make the law unconstitutional, because that was the only thing holding up in court that would remove it. The only thing that
just so you know, I
stayed
believe that
the
the mandate was unconstitutional.
Say it again.
The mandate is unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional right now because they removed they removed the tax mandate, and now that made the Obamacare itself unconstitutional. Because
because the mandate is unconstitutional. The government cannot mandate you to buy a product.
Correct, but they could mandate you the penalty for the tax penalty for not having insurance is what they removed, which allowed them to make the entire Affordable Care Act unconstitutional, because they can't force you to buy insurance. But when they did it as a tax penalty, that's how they did it. So that's what they removed. They just
that if they wanted to, they could go back and they could make something. They could put an amendment to the bill that would find the funding in another way that would make it legal.
But they didn't, and they did. And right now, the only thing that stopped it from being removed completely, and I believe it went before a judge in Texas, I believe, and his decision was going to completely remove Obamacare, was another judge or even maybe in the administration told them to stay that decision until after the election. So after the election, if they say go ahead with your decision, which is it was apparent that the judge was going to make the decision to invalidate the entire thing, but besides one word after the election, that whole thing is gone. My more thing with immigration is speaking of the immigrants that are already in this country and what would be done about those people. It seems to be the current it seems to be the current administration plan seems to be to just try to I guess to round up all immigrants and to deport them. I don't think that that's like some people feel that the Green New Deal is like a pie in the sky. It won't be done. I think it's much more unrealistic to think that you would be able to go through the entire country and round up 11 million people and remove them than it would be to try to create a jobs plan that will create more jobs needed than people we have in this country. Immigration, to me, I think DACA, protecting veterans who have served this country and trying to deport them, children who came here through no fault of their own and have lived here all their entire lives, and people who haven't committed crimes, going after them and trying to remove them, as opposed to just controlling what we have right now, putting some power, stopping new immigration.
Rounding them up, Troy, is basically a ploy to give his supporters a meat to hold on to say, yes, that's something that we can galvanize ourselves around and we can vote for our president again. Because to be honest with you, they like seeing the roundup of immigrants being caged and gotten rid of. Let's face it.
To get the forces together, it would take to marshal everyone who's here illegally is too expensive and just too authoritative. No way. I think we should be able to remove anyone, which has been their goal. They are trying to remove people here who are illegally and have been convicted of crimes here. I think that's well within our rights. We shouldn't, first of all, you're here illegally, you shouldn't be here. Now you committed a crime, we should be able to deport you. I think that the minute you serve your time, the prison should call up and say, hey, listen, this guy's here illegally from, ABC. We go pick him up, we deport him. That's number one. Number two, I think the only way you could lower the illegal immigrant population is Congress, who would set the policy. The president cannot give status to anybody. Congress does. I believe the people who are here for DACA should be protected. I think DACA is an illegal policy made by the president. It's outside of our president, Obama. It's outside of his purview. Congress needs to say who can be a citizen and who cannot be a citizen. I think that DACA people should be rewarded as long as they have not committed a crime. I think the one thing and the reason why the immigration policy has not been taken care of, because it needs to be taken care of by Congress, not the president, is because it's a hot issue that brings out voters. Republicans generally want immigration laws followed. When they see people here illegally and nothing being done, it pisses them off. Democrats feel that immigration laws are so unfair and terrible that you're doing it because of their race, that it makes them mad, and they come out and vote for it. I think that it should be you never hear either party talk about E-Verify. If everyone had to E-Verify and say the person you're hiring had to go through E-Verify and verify they could work here legally, illegals would not be hired, they would self-deport. If you put a fine on people, I would fine the worker for working here illegally, but I would just as heavily fine the employer. Imagine if the guys imagine if Time Warner hired illegals and got fined 10,000 times every time they got caught. That would happen once, and they would never do it again. That's another way to get people out of here, and neither party talks about that. You make sure that people are not while people are not eligible for federal benefits, and people here illegally don't get benefits from the federal government. Most states, especially blue states, do allow it, and the reason they allow it is because I own company ABC, which takes care of the illegal immigrant population because they can't make enough money. I can charge this state $100,000 a person. I can give $20,000 worth of benefits, and my company can rake the middle in. There is money being made off of illegals being here because generally people who are here illegally do not make money and need assistance. So I can charge in other words, I can charge the government of New York State money and make money, take 100 a person, give 25 out a person. I can make money. And that needs to stop because people have found a way to make money off of people here being illegally. And secondly, big business is another reason. Big business wants it here because they can drive down the prices of wages in certain demographics, in certain industries, construction, service and hospitality, cabbies. There's a lot of things where illegals could easily just go here and they keep down the wages. And all of those things serve the people on the top and hurt the people on the bottom, which is why you never hear there's not even one Democrat in a national position says, what, E-Verify is a good idea, because you know what? The people who back all the Democrats don't want that because they make money off the HB1 visas when they Google and Facebook and Google and Microsoft. They get to hire everyone from HB1 visas and have these engineers come here and make half the amount of money they'd have to pay an American engineer to work in these countries, in these companies. Think about it. You have to pay someone $250,000 for that job. You can pay someone from India $125,000. And
those visas,
billion-dollar companies. Billion-dollar companies doing this.
The use of those visas are not party specific because visas that have been
they're not. Like I said, Republicans want to help. Republicans want to at least punish people who are here with crimes. Yes, it tends to be people who are here who are brown and black because of our proximity in the globe. People from China can't walk over a border and get here. People from South America can. If the country below us was Vietnam, guess what? We would have an influx of Vietnamese illegals. So it's not a brown thing, it's a geographical thing. No one on the top is talking about that because neither party wants to do anything about it. Neither party wants that labor or that money or those angry voters to go anywhere. Think about it. They've been talking about immigration for 30 years. No one's done nothing.
It's angry voters. The angry voters to come against them. So that's their reason.
That's it.
Republicans like the fact that most of their supporters want to see these people gathered up and kicked out. So
would you?
Huh? Would I
Do
what?
you do? I'd ask anyone this simple question: does illegal immigration make this country better or worse?
It doesn't either, really.
I think if you take
Illegal
into a fact that
immigration does not make your country better. No,
it
illegal
does not.
immigration- no.
And I'll tell you why. And I'm not even going based on the policy that they're breaking the law. Unfortunately, illegal immigration hits three things that we have a limited supply of. One, schools. The federal government, the Supreme Court says anyone in this country, whether regardless of their status, between the ages of 6 and 21, is guaranteed a free public education. You can't, even if they're here illegally, you can't tell them they can't go to school. So when people come here illegally, they overburden the educational system, which, as we know, is a finite resource. Two, most of the people who are here illegally don't have jobs that have benefits. So they overwhelm the healthcare system, which we know is expensive and a finite resource. Thirdly, unfortunately, just by being here, a certain percentage of people are going to commit crimes, just like a certain percentage of any population commits crimes. They overwhelm the judicial system and the criminal justice system, which is another expensive and finite resource. We don't have so many jails, so many cops, so many courts. And that's, to me, I can overlook them being here illegally for a myriad of reasons. It's for those reasons that I can't.
The last two you said were incorrect, so I don't agree with those. The people that come
So
here.
you don't think that by just being here they commit crimes? Some of them, that if they weren't here wouldn't be committed.
No, absolutely. Everybody commits crimes, but if you're saying like they commit crimes at lesser rate than the people who are here.
That is illegal. Legal immigrants do, because they're vetted before they get here. Illegal immigrants actually commit more crimes per 100,000 people than regulars.
No.
It's a guaranteed fact.
No, it's
Well,
not.
first of all, they committed crime by being here. Number one.
If you're going to use that as the thing, you're going to say the same thing as a jaywalker. If you're using that as a factor, then yes, because technically all of them have committed a crime. My biggest thing with immigration, though, was the biggest thing to me was what was happening at the border as a matter of policy, with people coming across the border and what would normally be the immigration process being changed to where they were separating families, kids at the border from their families, in an attempt as a policy to make it as a deterrent from other people coming here. And the bad thing about it is, you see the kids that died during that process, people trying to come across the border, where the normal ports of entry where they could seek asylum was shut down, and they were forced to try to cross at other places, making them at that point illegal. And all of it to me was done as a way to try to make a statement and make it as a deterrent for people coming here, and it didn't work. People still came here in the same numbers, if not immigration increased. So you created all that hurt and harm towards people to try to make a statement, and it didn't work. And that was one of the big things I had a problem with.
Most people, kids and people, did not die in the cages. They died in the desert getting here. And what happens is, if you set up a system where people know I send my kid first and then I come later, and because they can't hold my kid, I get reunited, you've set up an incentive for people that was the incentive that was set up to come here and get across here. You create a $1 billion industry with coyotes. I think that you shut that down, less people now, especially because of COVID, do cross. And I do think overall, yes, first of all, the border's closed. They're not taking any applications.
Because of COVID, during the time that they were doing, especially at the height of the time that they were doing, putting the kids in cages, separate them, immigration wasn't decreasing because of the things they were doing at the border. It was, if anything.
So then, listen, I'm not going to apologize, because no one put a gun to these people's head. If you know that that's what you're getting when you get here and you still come here, I would never cross into Germany and think they would go like this. Hey, Ray, let me open you with welcome arms. Here's a ham sandwich. Here's some soda. Here's some chips. Stay in a hotel. No, I would never, me personally, I would never think of crossing illegally into another country. That is me.
You would never think of that.
That's why maybe
you could say that now because you are in the position you're in. You're not in a position where you and your family are threatened and you have your kids and you see their life is in mortal danger to say you would never do it. So you can only say you can never do
Oh
it.
no, and I would recognize that, but I still not my
Never say
fault,
never.
not my problem.
Okay, I mean, you could say that. That's fine. I mean, that is what it is. But I mean, just some of the other stuff.
Listen, I'm sorry, but I care about Americans first. I want Americans to be taken care of first. And
Yeah, but
once every
this is the
American's
thing, though.
taken
They're
care
not
of, then I can
mutually
take care of other
exclusive.
people.
They're not mutually exclusive
No, I
because
agree.
you
But
treat other
but you
people
know what
with
the problem is you say
and
people
decency and
they had to put
respect,
them in the
just like as a
cages,
human
but in
being.
other words,
Because you treat people with decency and respect
here's
as
the
a human
alternative
being,
though.
doesn't mean that you're not
Well,
putting.
no, I agree. But here's the problem.
You could have
There's a
done the same
gaping.
thing and not let them in without adding the cruelty to it, without adding the demonizer to it. That didn't have to be there. And if you
Well,
try
you
to
know,
do that in the term,
just
show them not to come, it didn't work. So that means you did all that to them for nothing.
I know. I think you're trying to deter them in some way because
Work.
you have to use anything you can. What's
No.
next? Standing at the border, starting to take
What about
shots at them?
shooting them? What about
Because
shooting them at the border?
Here's,
What about
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
All right.
No, but when I'm thinking about it,
let's
what happened was there's three. Ian, I'm kidding. Stop it.
I know.
I would not shoot. I wouldn't shoot anybody at the border.
You listen.
I wouldn't.
The bad thing was though, when somebody, I mean, people were suggesting shooting at people at the border, and it was not denounced. Let's just say it that it was not denounced.
All right, I denounce it here.
Ray for president.
I want to go on the record. I denounce shooting people trying to cross the border. I will make that. I make that statement. No, hold on, this way.
I think we've come to a mutual agreement.
Economy's gone to hell.
I mean, right now it's because of COVID, but the plan is, what is the plan going forward?
I know.
Close down the country again is definitely not an option. It you know, people can work with masks on. I'm doing it, so the rest of everybody else can. I mean, some way, somehow, the economy has to keep going for people to have work, people to pay their rent, people to pay their mortgage, people to live.
That's
So
the
it
crazy
can't
thing,
be
though.
closed.
But you might be able to go to work with your mask on, but you're working at a construction job. The thing is, if there's nobody to produce or buy stuff, that construction job goes away. So the question is, if this thing can't be curbed and the cases start going up, and people are not going to be going out, you might go out to work with a mask because you have to, but you're not going to go to restaurants, you're not going to go to gyms, you're not going to go to the movie. And if people are not consuming, it kills the economy anyway. So the thing is not just you know, you have to go work. It has to be some type of plan to do this thing in a smart way to keep it going where people feel comfortable and they're out and buying and consuming again. Because if not, then the economy is screwed.
Again, I think this is more of a state issue. I think the government can give guidelines on it, but at the end of the day, New York is going to be different than Missouri. Missouri is going to be different than North Dakota. North Dakota is going to be different than California. And as you see, the virus kind of circulates. It made its way from here, then the Florida, then the Texas, then the Arizona, then the California. Now it's up in the north. It's in the north of the country. It's like Wisconsin, North Dakota. So it's traveling around, and each state is going to be different, or some groups of states are going to be different at different times. And we're going to have to learn to manage risk. It's all there is to it, because think about it. When you fly, I mean, people die every year in plane crashes, yet people fly every day. So I think people are going to have to learn to mitigate the risk. And I think like I said, right now, they have to find a way. Shutdowns cannot be an option because the cure cannot be worse than the disease.
Besides the COVID, what is the like, say COVID aside, what is the current administration plan to improve the economy going forward?
Well, I know they want to take another round at lowering the personal income tax rate. They want to take another whack at infrastructure. They've been trying to get an infrastructure bill up, and for whatever reason, it's no go. They've also been trying to negotiate a relief package. And I guess we differ on that. Is at first it was 2.3 billion from the House and 2.3 trillion from the House, 1 trillion from the Senate, and then the Senate went up to 1.6, then the Senate went up to 1.8, and the Democrats still have not moved because I believe they are trying to make this an election issue, which I think is disgusting. Because the Republicans, listen to my shock, because normally they're just as dumb. They said we'll vote a standalone bill of like 500 million, which would then fund unemployment, would fund unemployment and start getting some stimulus checks going. And they won't even do that. They want a full comprehensive
I might be able to
benefit.
understand that because it's like fool me once, fool me twice thing. The first bill they put in, they didn't want to give the money that the Democratic Party wanted to give directly to the workers. They wanted to have them have more of the pie that was coming out of that. But they acquiesced to them in order to say, okay, listen, we'll come down to what you want so we can get this put through. And then that standalone bill will be the same thing. All right, let's just pull this out and put that through. And then eventually you'll just not get anything that you want again for the people. I did it once for you the first time and you screwed me. Why would I do it again to you? Like, no, that's what you want. So we need to leave that in there to make sure I can get now what I need for the people. And I don't.
You realize there's like $1 trillion in spending that hasn't even been allocated, that the Democrats won't even take it up to, it's been allocated, hasn't been assigned to a specific thing. And they haven't done it. Right now, there's like 105 billion for schools that once they vote on it, they can say who gets it. It's there. Like there's 105,000 for 5 billion for schools, but it has to be what schools are going to get it. And they won't even take the vote up on that. This is, by the way, pure politics by both sides.
That sounds like a block.
The Republicans want it. Yeah, it does, but they're both doing it because it's so close. They're both doing it because it's so close to the election. I'm sorry, what did you say again?
And that's holding that up. It's not the Democrats that's holding that up.
Listen, I don't know why you would need 2.3 trillion when you haven't even spent the rest of it. And if you really listen, and when you make a deal, it's a deal. I want 2.3, you offer 1.6, we come at maybe 1.8, 1.9. You come in the middle. That way, both people get what they want. You don't.
Now, the only thing with that, which speaking of also with that piece in the middle, I think it's actually not the Republican Party that wants to do it because they don't want to come up, but the president is willing to come up and spend that extra money. But
he has put one caveat on. He said he would do the 2.3, but he wants to take out the part he wants it to have nothing to do with anything that's not COVID related. Like, in other words, if you are a state or an industry that was failing before COVID, he doesn't want to put good money into bad money. He wants it to be, he wants it to be specifically to help workers, like people, I know the Republicans have been trying to get through in their $500 billion. What
I was saying was
correct, 500 billion. They want to give to the restaurants. They want to give to the airline. I mean, I don't see why these people just can't come up and give. All right, here's the airlines, 25 billion to help the airlines. Airlines have been killed. Here's some. There are ways you could do this if you really want to get it done. Both of them could sit down and say, you know what? What's more important than our politics are getting money to the people who need it. Like, you should be taking care of, unemployment should be, I don't know if it should still be 600, but it should at least be 3 or 4. I know the president was willing to do, I think, 400. Give me something. 3? Listen, I'll take 3. Something. Come up with something. You're asking for 6, I'm asking for 3. Give me 450.
One of the things.
There are deals to be had if people have them, but I think you have people on both sides who are like, no, it's better for me to go to my constituents, my donors, and say, I can't vote for this. Because here's the problem. You can get enough Republicans in the Senate to go up to like 1.8. After you go up past 1.8, you're going to start losing senators who say it's too expensive.
All right.
And in the House, Democrats are like, If you go below 2.3, you're going to lose the vote. So that area in the middle, they don't have enough votes on either side.
All right. I mean, one of the things that I just want to point out about the plan that like from Biden, this was the biggest thing, is the Build It Back Better plan. And that's just a major infrastructure plan to try to start building out.
Wow, sounds a lot like Trump's.
Say it again?
Sounds like Trump's. Sounds just like Trump's.
Yeah, but only thing is he never implemented it. He spoke of infrastructure bills,
He
but
didn't have enough votes.
no,
It
was never a bill put forward to be voted on that he had.
No, exactly. Not enough. You couldn't get enough. You can't get enough. The crux is you cannot get enough Republicans who want to spend that much money, and you can't get Democrats who want to come down far enough to meet them in the middle, because both, and I'm telling you, it's both sides don't want to. The Republicans don't want this to be a Democrat bill. The Democrats don't want this to be a Republican bill, because in the big scream, they don't care. They just don't care. I mean, I know you think I'm Mr. Republican, but they don't give two shits about me. And you guys are Mr. and Mr. Democrat, and they don't give two shits about you. They care about their donors.
I'm Mr. Policy, for the record. All right. I think
it's Mr. Republican, which I'm not.
I think that was a good all around wrap up. So this has been not really the last one before election. This might be a special episode of the New Labor Movement show. I am one of your hosts, Troy.
I'm another one of your hosts, Ray.
And I'm the sometime host, Ian.
And we are signing out. Go
and
vote,
this has been the New Labor Movement podcast.
Make sure you vote for Labor.
Listen, guys, on all seriousness, everyone, I don't care what your political affiliation is, please go out, use your right to vote. Because if you don't vote, then I want you to shut the F up about what happens.
I second that emotion.
Working.
Peace out, everybody.
Look, consensus. Who knew?